Hello and welcome to the Cask Distillery podcast once again, where we unlock the full potential of ServiceNow with expert insights and practical strategies only here on the Cask Distillery podcast. I'm your host, Sean Dawson, client architect here at Cask. And with me, I have Derek Knorr, who I want to run into a quick intro, and then we'll get into our talk. But Derek has been working in technology for over 23 years, basically at two large companies, 30,000 employee companies to start his career, and in the space of defense and aerospace industry and in healthcare. And he has now joined Avalara, a financial technology company, as the director of ServiceNow. First of all, thanks, Derek, for jumping on the podcast. I know we talked previously. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And thanks for taking the time to come on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Sean, great. Thanks for the invite. Love it. I love to talk about my favorite subject, ServiceNow.
Yeah, you are passionate. I love talking to you and I've loved getting to know you. But I was hoping for, first of all, let me frame, what we're going to be talking about is just the day in the life of a customer, what Derek's running through, what he's seen on the platform. And we thought it would be a good story because in talking to him, we're like, this is really valuable to our listeners and watchers of the distillery. So I thought it might be good to kind of go through your company, the background, and what's going on there real quick.
Sure, absolutely. Avalara is the biggest company you've probably never heard of. It is a financial technology company that automates tax compliance. So we sit behind really big integrations like Oracle's NetSuite, and we also provide end user tax compliance. So we have about 30,000 customers across the globe. So we do tax compliance for just not in the United States. We work with the big brands like Zillow, Converse, and even Netflix. So things that you've probably used. And we are integrated with a bunch of partners. So Stripe is one of them. So if you go out to eat and you see a Stripe point of sale machine, you just use an Avalara product. So it is pretty awesome. We have 5,000 employees across the globe. So it's a pretty small shop. And it's just a fantastic company to work for. And I'm really grateful that I get to implement ServiceNow here at Avalara.
Yeah, awesome. And I know Cask has had the pleasure of working with you and the team there. And I thought what would be good to know as well for the audience is what in the platform are you using right now today?
Yeah, sure. We're about only 18 months into our ServiceNow journey, Sean. And we started with Safe Workplace and ITSM. So those are the first, our entry into that. And right now we have HRSD, SecOps. We got about half of IRM, and we're using Employee Center. And Sean, I'm going to read your mind to see what's next. And well, I got a couple of big things coming. So we're getting after software asset management in the ITAM space. And we're going to be upgrading our Safe Workplace module to the full workplace service delivery, which is, I'm really excited. And I'm sure you've heard that I'm partnering with you guys, Cask, to make that happen. So those are the immediate things that are happening at Avalara.
Yep. Okay. And so you've expanded far beyond the foundation. Everybody knows ServiceNow for ITSM. Can you give us an overview of that journey? And we already talked about the products you're in, but how did that come about? I mean, most people get on ITSM, and quite honestly, sometimes people would just stay there, be happy and content. What made you look at the full possibility and the scope of ServiceNow? What was that journey like?
Well, I mean, ServiceNow is a business platform, and it automates a bunch of business processes. And if you're just going to have one Lego brick like ITSM, there's not a whole lot of things you can do with it. Yeah, you can optimize your IT like help desk and things like that. But when you're talking about full automation, crossing over businesses, business silos, departments, organizational structures, like ServiceNow is that sort of platform. So I mentioned Lego. ServiceNow is like Lego to me. The more bricks you have, the cooler solutions that you can make. And we at Avalara are getting all the Legos. We are going to use all of ServiceNow with the exception of project management and DevOps. We have other tools for that, but everything else is fair game. So that's how we kind of came around to what we're going to be doing with this amazing platform.
Yep. And I like how I imagine what you're looking at is the business services, not the technicality of it, that we can bring in a ticket and make it more efficient. But you're looking at the big picture of that. So when you were doing that, how did you go about defining and sharing the vision inside of that? Was it
Oh,
a
sure.
challenge? Was it, what were you doing practically? Because we've honestly talked about that in the podcast previously. It was actually one of our first where we're talking about sharing a compelling vision with ServiceNow. But what did you see? How did you accomplish it?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's the vision is really simple. Like we want to be able to make things easy for people to request services. Okay, like I
Hmm.
want to go to one place. I want to, log my HR ticket, request a leave of absence, check my payroll. I want to correct. I need something. I need to request a new mouse.
Hmm.
All that kind of stuff should not be in fragmented systems. So, that's a very compelling sort of end game, so that I can go one place and like get all my needs taken care of. So from
Hmm.
that sort of perspective, it was a really easy picture to paint from like an executive leadership to do buy-in and things like that, because we can create that one point of entry, that one start shop sort of thing with
Yeah.
Employee Center Pro. And then also,
Yeah.
so customer experience is number one. Providing internal customers, Avalarians, a good customer service that we provide our external customers. But the other one
Yeah.
is automation, So, I mean, it does route work to the right people at the right time and make sure that work is being done and tracked by SLAs and all that kind of stuff. So we want to use ServiceNow as an automation platform as well, to get things out of email, post-it notes, phone calls, that sort of thing into a very structured way. So those two tenets made the vision for adoption, of full adoption of ServiceNow, very compelling. And I was able to successfully paint that picture. So I got buy-in. I
Yeah.
love it.
And so what did you do? Did you just schedule? And I'm asking because what I think people do is they get wrapped in their own world. Like, how does, like, they really need the step by step. Walk me through, like, did you just announce it, or did you have relationships with these people and you got the stakeholders in? And what did you find that worked and didn't work?
Sure. I mean, I talk to people all the time. Okay. So it's just all about
Yeah.
relationships. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out advocating for the platform, advocating for my team, and talking to everyone about what we call the art of the possible, like
Hmm.
what we can do here, and what sort of tools can we bring to you to make your job better. Right.
Hmm.
And approaching it is to, I have options for you so that you can do more, you can keep your headcount flat and accomplish more. You can automate some of the easy stuff out of the way and focus on the hard things. Like these are things that leaders of organizations, departments, teams, that's really interesting to them. I'm not bringing them work. I'm taking work away through automation and doing
Yeah.
a consistent platform. So
Yeah.
so
So you're
talking with
truly
those
partnering.
stakeholders. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. That's awesome. I had another question that popped in my mind, but now
Sure.
it just went away. So I'm gonna move on with that. I
Well,
guess, what did you find anything that didn't work with the stakeholders? Do you have any
oh,
tips or
sure.
tricks as people start approaching this?
Well, Sean, I'm gonna talk about there. To me, there's two different types of stakeholders. Okay, there's the people
Yeah.
who are in and like are using the platform, and then the people who are new. Okay, so like how my approach to those are a little bit different. And so existing stakeholders, people who are working the platform, know it and love it. I do something called stakeholder rounding with them every quarter. Okay, that keeps them
Mm,
engaged and figures out how we can better support them and what their pain points are, stuff like that. Now, where a lot of work comes into and where I spend a lot of my time is with these new stakeholders. Okay. And I go through lots of demos, lots of design sessions, a lot of contract work in order to make that happen. And so, like workplace service delivery, I did mention at the beginning that we're working with CAST to deploy that. I had you
yeah.
guys come in, show the stakeholders in the facilities of Avalara like all the capabilities of the platform. So that was super critical. Now, to answer your question about like what hasn't worked, I'm going to tell you that some of these existing stakeholders, when I say quarterly rounding, like it's not enough. They want to meet with
Hmm.
me like every 2 weeks. Like
Huh.
my SecOps teams, things change on a dime in that domain, so they want to meet with me all the time to make sure they stay ahead of stuff. So. And then Sean, every time I have a surrounding meeting, I come out with about 20 action items for my team. So
Yeah.
that is also pretty challenging too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I can
so that's
imagine.
that's how I handle stakeholders and also some of the challenges. But I'm constantly talking to leaders in the space about what we can bring to the table to help them.
Yeah. That's great. Did you do I don't know, anything like an ROI, when you're talking about stakeholders and the efficiencies and
Yeah.
MTTR. I mean, you talked about eliminating tasks. Do you get into ROI with them at all and showing what the benefit and the cost savings could be?
Yes, we do. So, and also, I mean, Cask is really helpful with all that stuff
Hmm.
too about saving things. And I have to give it up to ServiceNow because, like they are able
Yeah.
to really articulate very clearly and quickly what their anticipated ROI is for the modules that they're seeing. So
Yeah.
that's really good. Key performance indices are also really important to make sure we understand and agree on those and track those things within a dashboard and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that the ROI things that these teams are really loving. And also,
Yeah.
Sean, like anecdotally, like they're like, we've kept our headcount flat, and Evalera has grown as a company by nearly double in the last couple of years. So, like
Hmm.
through using that platform, like it's we've been able to scale, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
So, in relation to talking to stakeholders, you're kind of creating demand because you're proactively going out and talking to people. Plus, I'm sure
Mhm.
you get some demand.
Oh
But
yeah.
when you think about governance, how are you dealing with governance at Avalara right now,
Sure.
and
Yeah,
how do you
absolutely,
approach it?
Sean. That's a great question. And to me, governance has two components to it. Okay, so the first is like what sort of standards, processes, practices do you want to have in place to ensure that everything is kind of treated the same way. Okay, and the
Hmm.
second one is like who's the ultimate decision maker. So like everyone wants work for my team. So where do I draw that cut line and sort of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I will tell you from the first one. So adhere like getting standards and stuff. We at Avalera, we firmly believe in using out of the box sort of functionality. And that's what I'm talking with stakeholders that, hey, I want to make sure you're willing to blow up your existing practices, and use the best practices that ServiceNow has identified in this domain to redo the way that you might be doing work today. So,
Hmm.
so that's one of our tenets of governance is out of the box. So, but I will tell you, we do smart customization as well. So
Hmm.
it's not a hard and fast, absolutely not every time, but the team has a discussion about it, and if it makes sense, we'll do something that in a customized way. So so that's one
Yeah.
part of governance. I'll talk about the second one real quick. Like who's
Sure.
the ultimate decision maker? Sean, with so many modules out here, I have so many stakeholders. Okay, I think I have about
Yeah.
15 of them. Okay,
Hmm.
so and of course, all of their work is number one on their list. But when they throw the list together, that list of 1 through 1,000, we have to draw a cut line somewhere within our quarterly commits. So that's where my amazing TPMs and also my boss and my boss's boss are able to advocate for this is our cut line for our capacity, and that's what we're going to deliver this quarter. So that to me governs the two things: the standards you're going to follow and the best practices, and also who's the ultimate decision maker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and we're talking about governance. We've
Yeah.
talked about what you've got going on. Let's skip over to, team building. Like, how are you thinking about you building your team? And do you decide to, bring it in versus working with a partner like
Mhm.
Cask? How do you approach that right now?
Well, yeah. So team building is super important because you can deploy things, but if you don't maintain it and you don't enhance it, you don't upgrade it, the value that you're getting on year one is going to be zero by year two.
Hmm.
So, to me, team building is the acknowledgement that one team cannot do it all. Okay. So
Yeah.
I have a core platform team that is super knowledgeable about everything in the ServiceNow ecosystem. Okay, but they're not knowledgeable about legal practices, facilities maintenance practices, that sort of thing. So
Hmm.
we need to grow and upskill ServiceNow skills within those departments so that they're able to do have direct access to the platform to be able to update the things that they need. So I've been able to do that. I don't know if I made this up, but I call it a scaled resource. So
Hmm.
they're basically a dotted line member of our team. They participate in our daily stand-ups. They're in all of our rituals and all that kind of stuff. So they're basically an extension of our team. So that's pretty cool. And then the second thing, Sean, is like about building a very strong team is just acknowledging that everyone's strengths and just realizing that we are better together than we are individually. So
Hmm.
that's something that I really love because like Yuva, my BA, is different skill sets than Arpit and Ambu's, my devs, and they all have different skill sets than I do. But together, we really put that puzzle together. So now I'm going to ask. I'm going to go on to the next part of your question about like how do we use partners, right? So
Yeah. Hmm.
we use partners at Valera a lot. And Sean, I'll be very transparent with you. Early in my career, I was very partner adverse. Okay,
Hmm.
they were expensive. The handoffs were terrible. They come in and then they leave, and then you're holding this thing, and
Hmm.
it's not a good thing. I have pulled a 180 on that, Sean. So I'm actively seeking out partners in all of our modules upon deployment because I need their expertise in the industry best practices. Okay. So, and
Yeah.
I think the third time during this recording that I talked that we're using you guys for workplace service delivery. And I
Hmm.
am super excited to work with Kylie and Marnie on your team because what they were able to do at 7-Eleven just blew me away. So
Hmm.
if they can manage, I don't know, 50,000 stores, I think they can handle about 30 Avalara buildings across the globe. So that's why I'm pretty excited to work with
Yeah.
them. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thanks for that feedback on that and for
yeah,
responding to that because, uh, it's something that people need to think about. Are we going to try to do it ourselves, and do we have the experience? And
yeah,
if you don't, where do we go, and how do you look at that? So, thanks for that. So,
yeah.
if you had infinite resources and you could press the go button yourself, what do you think you'd do? Because I got to know you well enough. I know you've got a
Mhm.
lot of plans, but what would that be?
Well, can we suspend reality for a moment and can I like clone my team 5 times over? Because I would love all of that. So,
Hmm.
but honestly, like, I mean, if I had infinite resources, there's a couple things I would do. One is really ramp up the scaling of my team. Okay, like
Hmm.
when I said like 5x it, I'm absolutely for real about that. The second thing is that I would bring in partners to deploy everything within the ServiceNow ecosystem that we had an appetite for. Okay, out of the
Yeah.
box, put it out there. Okay, get it stood up, do the stakeholdering, get everyone's like practices to out of the box functionality. Okay, and everyone having a baseline use and understanding of the platform. And then, and then drive all the traffic to Employee Center Pro for everything. Okay, everything.
Hmm.
So I had integrations with all of our systems, Concur, Workday, our learning platform, everything like that, everything. And
Yeah.
then finally, um, I would focus on doing like big things like cross department workflows, okay, and like automating that, okay. And so like what I mean by that is like think about an employee onboarding, okay.
Hmm.
That covers HRSD, that covers asset, it covers probably security and account provisioning. It covers and it's probably payroll, things like that. I would start using my newly cloned 5x team to implementing these sort of cross module sort of platform business problems and do an automated streamline thing. That it would be if I had the go button. So I should probably play Powerball and make it happen. So
that's a
yeah,
lot. So the next question actually is a good feeder to that response, or from that response
yeah.
rather, is how many projects is too many projects at a given time for you right now?
Well, Sean, we've been talking for a while here, and and it's very clear that I'm a very aggressive person. So I'm gonna, so for the people listening, take my answer with a little bit of a grain of salt because I'm very aggressive, I'm very optimistic, and I often live in a state of suspended reality where everything works out wonderfully and everyone's happy with the end product. Okay, so knowing that, okay. Um, I'm gonna have to say about 5 is probably the most you can probably handle. But of those 5, pick 2 of your most important. Okay, so like if something's got to go, like trim the bottom 3. Okay, you can work on some things, but like you have to pick a top 1 and 2 and make those your top priorities. So I like to grab little things and bring them along. So that's why I have like a cast a wide net, but really focus on 2. Maybe my answer is 2, Sean. I don't know. What do you think? So
I think your goal typically is more, but you might have to scale back to two.
yep. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I have big eyes. Okay. And I have
Yeah.
big appetite. So, but I'll settle on two, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Regarding value, um, I wanted to ask you, we talked about vision. How do you get your vision out? But
Yeah.
once this all comes about and you're starting to get the business value, you're realizing the ROI. I know you mentioned you have regular meetings. Is that kind of where you do your business value from the given solution back to them? Or do you do something bigger than that or
Well,
more between that?
Well, it's I actually kind of flip it back on the leaders in that space. Okay. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I've got the platform, but they got to drive on the road, you know? So like they need to report to their leaders about how they're doing with this shiny new toy that they just got. So yes, I work with them to develop KPIs and make sure we have the tracking mechanisms in place to enable all those sorts of things. So I really it's me as the platform owner is I'm important, but I'm not their boss is not my boss, and so like they want to make sure that they're having the right metrics and reporting for that value sort of thing. But
Hmm.
Sean, let me show you a couple cool things. I mean, I rattled off a ton of things that we're doing already that we already have deployed, and like I mean, talking with the leader in the SecOps space, like they're through automation and they've saved about 5 FTEs. So that's incredible. Okay, like that's a
Yeah.
thousand hours a
Yeah. Yeah.
month. So
Hmm.
I talked about our help desk has stayed relatively flat, even though we've grown as an organization. Like we've nearly doubled in about 2 years.
Hmm.
I don't know. We just deployed HRSD. Hey, I'll tell you, Sean, the way to get HR's case management was a shared inbox. Now I go to Employee Center and I have all these options to select, and it's so awesome for direct access to things. And so they're loving their life because the work is structured and it's segmented out based on the case managers of their areas of expertise. It's payroll, leaves, whatever. That's super cool. So and then I told you I had a little bit of IRM deployed.
Yeah.
The leader in
Hmm.
that space, they love the audit once and provide evidence to many controls. So they'll able to audit more frequently. So that's very fun. So like in addition to like hardcore numbers, FTEs, say things like that, like just the structure and the knowledge and the reporting and the
Yeah.
sensibility of know what work is has been really, really beneficial to all the teams that I've worked with.
That's awesome. Um, so for and I want to frame this to be, I guess, outside of Avalara for you
Yeah.
is what would you be your advice for those that are watching this and they're going, gosh, Derek, you've got all this stuff, you're excited, but what about those that have to think about, pace of change and how the
Mhm.
culture might impact that? What would you advise those listening, and have them consider when they're thinking about pace of change and how the culture impacts? You've done an awesome job at Avalara and other places you've been. What are your tips and tricks and what are your thoughts on that for those watching?
Well, I mean, you have to inspire excitement, okay?
Hmm.
And like, like that's the number one thing. And you have to be able to show them that, life can be better, okay? By
Hmm.
changing the way that you're doing these things. And I always look around and, as I hear people saying, well, this is the way we do it. This is the only way that we've done it. I'm like, well, that's interesting because I don't know anyone in your organization who's written books about how to do these sorts of things. So maybe they're not the best. And like there's other things that are out there. And this is where I love Cask and this is where I love ServiceNow because they're sourcing all the best practices about how people are using their products and then giving it out in run books and things like that. So I'm very lucky that I work at Avalara because we're a very change friendly organization. Okay. Like we are so fast because we have to be in this financial technology space that everyone's willing to embrace change. So that's the one thing. So I mean, you have to make sure you paint a really good picture, talk about the art of the possible, show them how things work, connecting with other people that have done these sorts of things, and to get them more comfortable in making this sort of change. So it's pretty awesome that way, and you'll have good success with that.
Yeah. And if I'm reading between the lines here too, is that you're kind of saying your excitement and be passionate about it can change the culture and get people thinking versus I've got to change this. I've got to do this, and getting them excited about the art of the possible,
Yep.
essentially, and then backing into it that way.
Yep, 100%,
Awesome.
Sean. I mean, you have to paint a perfect picture for them and then decompose it into how we're going to do it. And I don't know, that's something that like we might talking to stakeholders and about what they want their future state to be. I just map it to what we have, what we have deployed and what we're going to deploy and what we may potentially deploy. So,
Mhm.
and that's the way that shows them the map of how to get to their good.
Yep. So the last thing that I wanted to get your view on was really what are some things that are exciting you? What are you keeping your eyes on regarding up and coming ServiceNow features? I know you mentioned a couple of things you want to get into, but is there
Yeah.
anything you can call out, like things that you're really excited to see come about?
Sean, I am so excited about this sort of thing because Avalara was one of two companies of all of ServiceNow's customers. I think they have like, what, 7,000, 8,000 customers,
Yeah.
to be part of generative AI, like I'm going to call it
Mm.
prototype. It's called
Yeah.
Task Intelligence. It's not available. You can't buy it. No, we're refining it and stuff like that. But what it is it's generative AI in the ITSM space, which comes
Yep.
up with field recommendations based on your data. So, like, we have our own LLM. That's great. We're tweaking it, getting really great success results, and it's going to really like supercharge our help desk because they no longer need to think about which group which assigned to this needs to go to, what business services, what configuration item it is, because the model is sourcing from our data and presenting that to them. So that is one thing that I'm super excited about, and that goes hand in hand with that. And I pretty much was falling out of my seat at Knowledge this year was the Now Assist stuff. Like, I
Hmm.
gotta tell you, the text to code, case summarization, that is going to be absolutely amazing for adopters of this sort of thing. I'll tell you, like when I was talking about it to my team, one of my amazing developers, Arpit, said he might as well just quit because you don't need him anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we still need you. But so the text to code stuff was super great for scripting, and and Sean, uh, all that stuff makes the platform even more accessible. Okay, because like
Hmm.
all of the work that ServiceNow has done over the last couple of years for the low code, no code tools, combine that with Now Assist, like you don't need a computer science degree to do this. You just need to be an
Yeah.
expert in your practice and know how to use the tools to set up really, really powerful workflows in a short period of time. So,
Yeah.
Sean, those are so is AI, maybe just AI I'm excited about. How about that? So, but
Yeah.
our entry with Task Intelligence is going to be great, and hopefully we get to see it maybe in Xanadu. I don't know. We'll see. So, we'll see. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that was all we have time for today. But thank you, Derek, so much for coming on and taking time out of your schedule. Like I said earlier, it's a pleasure to have you on. It's been a pleasure to get to know you. And for those of you listening, if you could do me a favor, do us a favor, and rate, share, like these conversations that we have on however you're watching these. It helps the algorithm push this to other people that are interested in the material. Also, let us know if there's something that you want to see. But for now, that's it for this episode of The Distillery, and thanks so much. Take care all. Bye-bye.